Just a friendly reminder to make sure your microphones are on so you can be heard.
You ready, Julia? Yeah. Thank you.
Ready? Call the meeting to order. Welcome everybody to the October meeting of the Coastal Dune Lakes Advisory Board. We will have for the pledge and proceed from there.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a quorum and we are ready to get rolling on one of our biggest agendas ever, I think. Biggest agendas ever.
The last one of the year is usually a little bit more.
It's action-packed.
We have a lot of business to take care of in the last one, to prep
Okay.
for the next year.
Let's get rolling.
Okay.
I needed a motion for the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Motion in a second. All in favor? Aye. All right, matrix update.
All right. In your packets, you have the annual matrix that we update for each meeting. Pull that up real quick. I think the only thing I've added was some grants. And of course, Coastal Dune Lake Week, which we're currently in, and we'll go over some of those details here in a little bit. But yes, we have we did letters of support for the Atlanta Botanical Garden, for the Grayton Beach State Park Restoration Project. We haven't heard anything back on that one, correct, yet?
No, well, the government shutdown, I think, is slowing things down a little bit, but
Yeah.
we expect hopefully to hear in late November, early December, so.
And then the other one that we're looking at doing, which I'll get out by the end of the week, is a Coastal Partnership Initiative grant. This is one where you all approved the process. I took it to the Board of County Commissioners to allocate some of the Coastal Dune Lake funds to do nuisance exotic removal in an effort to provide additional funding. We're gonna use those funds as match to try to get $60,000 more, so we can implement a little bit longer of a range of a project. So that's the plan, and so I'll get that out to try to at least attempt for those funds. But that was the only other thing, other than Coastal Dune Lake Week, that we'll go over here shortly. Which is.
Matter of fact, that's our next
Yes,
item.
It is. All right, so Coastal Dune Lake Week. We are currently in the midst of Coastal Dune Lake Week. We're very excited about it. We've had a lot of activities going on. In your agenda, you do have a checklist of all the things that we had planned and have already almost implemented most of it. Let me pull that up too so I can speak to it a little bit better. So we have, we took to the Board of County Commissioners a resolution for the dedication or proclamation of this particular week as being Coastal Dune Lake Week, so we could further our education and outreach activities for our community and our visitors. Throughout the week, we have had a tour at Deer Lake State Park for the restoration project out there with Atlanta Botanical Gardens. So thank you, Jeff, for that. That was a really great turnout. We had 15 registered. I think a couple people weren't able to make it, but it was still a really good turnout, lots of great questions, and I think everybody learned something new. Yesterday was a tour at Topsail State Park with our master naturalist, Bill, I'm not gonna pronounce his last name correctly, so Bill Kay. And he did a fantastic job. We had some staff that were there and brought back great reviews of the tour itself, and I think everybody else, I think Michelle went on that tour, correct?
Yes, I did. It was fantastic.
So,
Really learned a lot.
that's always a good one for people to start learning the ecology a little bit of our coastal dune lakes. Today, of course, is our Coastal Dune Lake Advisory Board meeting, which we have 2 presentations later on to provide some information on resilience, as well as our water quality status updates for 2024. Tomorrow, we'll have an event at Grayton Beach State Park with our Sea Grant agent, Laura Tu. She'll be doing the Coastal Dune Lake tour out there. That's always an exciting one as well. And then on Friday, the Choctawhatchee Basin Alliance will be doing a paddle cleanup at Eastern Lake. All of these events also include t-shirts while supplies last. And today, as you're here, please grab your t-shirts if you haven't done so already this week. And help support. We've done some social media posts. I'm still working on some of the ones from prior to this week, or earlier in this week that we'll do. We did do mail-outs for almost 2,000 properties. So I think I've gotten a few really good reviews on that so far. And what else did we do? We have a DIY, let me actually do it correctly this time and not be dyslexic. Cleanups that are going on. I know I had my team out there on Monday morning doing some cleanups, and we were able to collect about 3 bags full of trash near Western Lake Outfall. Then we also have the logo, which you'll see on the t-shirt. So it's been a really eventful week. I think that people have learned a lot and have been involved. So I think those are good things. For those who have already participated, if you have any comments.
Well, on the spot.
Oh,
No, I'm just kidding.
sorry.
No, the turnout was great Monday. It was a very engaged group, and this has become one of our favorite tours of the year to show off the restoration of the wetlands that we've done at Deer Lake, and then talk about some of the other projects that we have going on. And highly encourage you to sign up if you have not already, and if there's spots available for tomorrow for the tour at Grayton. Laura's great. Grayton is great. It's a great matchup. So it'll be very informative too. And so yeah, and I look forward to it. The team did wonderful out there.
Mhm.
So
As of earlier this week, there was. There's an Eventbrite, so feel free to go on there and see. If not, let me know and I'll make a phone call.
okay, ready to move on? Okay, the renewal or appointment of positions expiring this year.
December. All right, so as you guys may recall, I think it was last year, we switched all the appointment expiration dates from January to December. It's a county-wide volunteer board effort just to kind of get all the volunteer boards done at one time versus the staggered effect. So we have 3 positions this year that expire. So if you're interested in renewing, just let me know. I will get you the links you still have to fill out a volunteer application, and we have to get that submitted. But that will be just part of the process, so I will get that to you. If you're not interested in pursuing your position any further, then I will get it out and advertised so that we can get some applications in. But first off and foremost, thank you all for your service to this board. It is always much appreciated at staff level to have active members who are there to support the efforts in Walton County.
Are we raising the pay next year?
Yes, I'll double it.
Great,
Okay.
great. Always fighting for you guys.
And if you don't want to tell me now or whatever, you can always tell me later. But you just, those are the positions that are expiring, so,
Well, you can count me in,
okay, sure,
positive.
okay.
What else am I gonna do? Once every, a Wednesday every 3 months?
Okay.
Okay, so moving on, the voting of the 2026 officers.
So this is another thing that we do this particular board meeting, just so that we can have it all set up and arranged for the January meeting as well, so go at it as you will. Who would like to be what? Do we want to move up? I think that Julia's been secretary for quite some time.
I would like to not be secretary.
Okay. So what we have done in the past is we've done rotations, where it's like the chair, if the chair wants to stay the same and nobody else wants to take it, that's fine. If the chair wants to step down, then the vice chair would move up. And then the secretary would move up to vice chair, and then we just ask for a new secretary, kind of thing.
I don't want any responsibility.
So,
All right, well, floor is open.
Hey, I guess I was asleep at that last part. I'll stay on. I didn't know, I thought I was just renewed last year.
no, you weren't on, I'll pull it up real fast, but, for last, I think you were vice chair is what. I think it was Cole and Tim. Wasn't you two? Yeah, that renewed last year.
Well, whatever, regardless, I'll stay on also.
Okay.
I mean,
For,
I feel like a couple of people have already nominated Michelle to be secretary over here.
since I'm north of the bay, I'm not as involved. So I don't.
I mean, I'm north of the bay too.
Huh? I think you're vice chair. Let me check though.
What's our term?
Term limits are 3 years. So every 3 years we cycle to an expiration date. But for the actual position, so chair, vice chair, and secretary are annual. So that's why we do it typically this meeting.
Okay, so,
I better be chair too.
okay, well, we have to have a motion to that effect.
Seconded?
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
No.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Who motioned, who second?
Cole. Julia seconded.
Motion, okay.
And who's currently the vice chair?
I think it's Dave. So I was checking. I think it's actually on the website. Sorry for the delay on that one. Go to our handy dandy website here where we have lots of information on coastal Dune Lakes, including the board. Just in case you've never navigated, make sure you go to departments, environmental services, environmental resources, and then the coastal Dune Lakes. Well, I thought I put it on here. Well, Dave, I'm deeming you as it because I think that's correct. I'm deeming you as the
All right, well,
vice.
I vote.
How could you?
For vice.
Is it working?
Take my
Yeah,
place.
I'm sorry.
Take your
Hang on a second.
Yeah, I just went out to listen on the video. What you guys say is so important, but you've got to speak into the microphone
Okay.
a little bit more.
Please scoot
because
your microphones
you two,
into,
Melissa and Dave,
Linda.
if you don't mind. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's important. Julia, I didn't hear you at all, so. Okay, sorry. Okay, thanks, Dottie.
So, vice chair, is that a motion?
Okay, so who motioned?
I did.
Okay.
Dave made a motion for
Dave's motioning for Tim.
Correct.
You're welcome.
Is there a second?
Second.
Cole's seconding.
Okay. Any discussion?
No, but I can go aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, I'm taking the
And then
birthday present away.
Cole motioned for Michelle to be secretary, and I'm gonna second that one.
Okay, any discussion?
Oh, goody.
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
I,
we have,
And
we're set.
Michelle, you're not alone. I will help you through this process.
Thank you. I'm
Vice
always
Chair.
happy to serve, so we'll see how it goes.
Okay, we have to set the meeting schedule for the coming year.
So I actually just want to do this as tentative, if you guys are okay with this. I unfortunately cannot reserve this particular room until the judge chooses his dates for traffic court. So it's a little bit delayed, so if you're comfortable with these dates, that's what the plan is, but just keep in mind
How
at
far out will
me.
we know?
I will know by the end of the year.
Oh, okay.
It just, some of the rooms are dual rooms, so this one's also used by the judge for traffic court. We have other rooms that are used for other meetings and stuff like that, so we just have to wait until all of those get
Okay.
assigned, and then I
No
can
problem.
swoop in
I
there
just
with
tend
the
to be
extras.
out of town most of the summer, and therefore I'm gonna try to
Okay.
schedule around it if possible this
Yes, so
summer.
the plan would be, what I have found, looking at all schedules and stuff like that for all board meetings, typically the last Wednesday of the month is the most available that doesn't overlap with other meetings. I am finding that the magistrate was today at 9 o'clock. So there is that overlap, which causes a little bit of conflict if you guys needed to be at the magistrate for any reasons or whatever, or if there's a topic that comes up, that causes a little bit of conflict, but I'll talk with planning to find out why
Okay.
those are getting overlapped as well. So, if you're comfortable with those, that will be the tentative, and then I'll obviously send it out confirmed once we can get the room reserved.
I will need a motion to that effect. I can't make the motion. I need a motion.
Okay, I'll motion it.
Motion? Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Right, perfect, thank you.
Okay, discussion of topics for 2026 CDL Education Series.
So, obviously, every year for at least the past 7 years, we've been doing the Coastal Dune Lake Education Series, which I think has been very informative, has helped you guys have more information as well as the public. It can be reviewed because the meetings are recorded now. So it's a really great opportunity for us to provide additional education for everyone. But if there's any topics that you guys would be interested in, we've done a lot in the past. We've done things on plants, we've done things on management of the coastal dune lakes. We have talked to all of the departments in the county, and had them come in and talk about what their roles are and how they work around the coastal dune lakes. We've brought in specialists for nights, the
Dark sky.
yeah, the dark sky type stuff. So we've done quite a diverse presentations over the many years that we've been doing this so far. But if there's anything that was really of interest to you that you want repeated, or if there's something new that you want to know about, I can try to facilitate some stuff on that.
I wanted to say that this, I received a little brochure in the mail, and this was amazing. I appreciate it so much. It's about, what to do when you live. It's a homeowner's guide to living on a coastal dune lake. And I think it would be really helpful if one of our meetings covered additional things to do if you're a homeowner on the lake, all the, the do's and the don'ts, and especially since this is recorded and people can watch it. We have so many new people moving to the area and so much development, new development. And some of the people that move here may not realize it's a coastal dune lake. They may just think it's a a pond or just, whatever. And it's a great, if we're here to educate, I think that would be a really helpful thing, to educate what to do in that coastal dune lake protection zone and what not to do.
Okay.
Do we have a plan to send those out on a regular basis, like every year, every couple years? Like, do we have a plan for that?
Not a dedicated plan, no. We have sent them out in the past. We decided early on in this year for planning for Coastal Dune Lake Week that would be one of our initiatives that we would do. So we sent that out last week, hoping that it arrived either right before or during the week. I think it arrived at your house, Michelle, last week, so
Last
that
week.
worked out well. I've had others tell me that they received theirs as well.
I don't
Did you
think
not
I
get
got
yours?
one. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm across the street from the lake, but I still should have been in that grouping,
Okay.
right?
Should have been, but it's possible maybe it just didn't get gathered. But we can go back and
It's
look.
possible I haven't checked my mail too. It's entirely
I
possible.
can't help that one.
Yeah, that's entirely possible as well, but I thought I had.
Sometimes mail does get lost too, in the transition, so, but
How-
yes, that was one of our initiatives this year.
How big a zone did we cover for that? How far out?
I believe that I had GIS pull the whole 300 feet.
Okay.
The coastal dune lake protection zone, because it was close to 2,000 mail outs that we did,
Okay.
so it was a significant number.
I know my neighbors that live across the street from the lake did receive this.
Okay, perfect.
And
I got mine at Grayton this week,
Okay.
so I'd like to get some maybe for the HOA meetings.
Certainly.
Yeah.
The one over there, they're not part of us, at Lake, what's the other side of Grayton, on the north side, it's not in Grayton Beach over there. And hand that guy, I know the head guy over there, and hand him, so we can hand those out at his meeting.
Okay.
They're the ones that,
Does everybody still do their HOA meeting, like the big one in October? Is that still kind of
we
a
have two
normal?
a year, yeah, October and
So that would be
then
perfect for our coastal dune lake.
spring,
Okay.
April.
ours is in January.
Yours is in January, okay.
I think
Maybe
mo-
that can be the initiative for next year, is getting boxes of those out to the
I think most
HOAs.
of them are in October, November, early November.
Okay,
And one other thing, that the fish that the guy did, came in and did the fish study, that was very interesting to me, if we can do that again. And then also the guy that did talks about the bears, there seems to be a lot more
Yeah.
bears
okay.
that was
So more
interesting
wildlife
to me.
based. Okay,
I do think periodically we can probably recycle them, like every few years or something.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't think we have to come up with new ones
No,
indefinitely.
and that's kind of where I was, that's where it kind of was at, well, maybe we could start recycling some of them, but if you had any new ideas that came up, that's why I wanted to at least provide the opportunity.
Did we ever have one with the, Division of Forestry and the Park Service that kind of delineated between the two? Because I know we've got state park, and we got state forest, and they kind of run together.
So
And
we
some of them are
had,
fenced and some are.
we had like Matt Allen from Grayton Beach State Park, and then I think we also had the Division of Forestry here, but it was during our land management
Uh-huh.
series that we were doing. So it kind of talked about what they do for land management.
Well,
So
if we did, either I might have missed it, or it's been long enough, that the island might have a
something on
refresher that,
recreation
yeah.
too? Okay.
Just in general, kind of along with the bear thing.
Yeah.
I was actually wondering about having the friends of the various parks come in and talk about their initiatives.
Oh, that's something new. Okay. Any other ones? We only have 4 meetings a year, so I
That was pretty
might
much
be able to-
4.
Huh?
That was 4.
I
Yeah,
have 5. right
The-
now, but
yeah.
yeah, some of these I might be able to combine a little bit.
Yeah, if it's possible to combine, I do think that, again, with all the new development, that maybe best practices for building materials, just again, things to protect this fragile coastal dune lake environment. You know, I'm sure people would be interested in that and also interested in protecting their investment.
Mhm.
Okay, what 5 do you have? I have coastal dune lake protection zone, best practices, and then wildlife, and then land management / recreation, and then friends of.
Okay, I had the fish and bears separated, so I lumped them together under wildlife now, so
Oh,
we do
okay.
have 4 now.
All right. I was like,
I'm sorry.
no, it's fine. I just was like, okay, I'm missing one. Okay, great.
Yeah,
It
that
was
Yes,
was,
combined
the
into
fish and
wildlife.
bears, I put them under wildlife. Okay. I put them together. You want them separate?
Well, no, there's usually two different people doing that. One is the state guy, the guy that did that bear one
Okay.
with the state forest, I think.
no, he's with, Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission. We have a bear biologist for the area.
Okay.
Fish one was somebody, Choctaw Basin.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably Maddie Kelly. I don't know if they're doing that specifically anymore, but I'll look into some opportunities and see what's out there.
Yeah, I would definitely like to explore doing more mail outs. Like maybe we can phase it like every couple of years doing the protection zone to make sure the people on the lake understand it, but then maybe every, like, take a section or one of the commissioner zones and do that every couple of years too, to
Okay.
just get the information out a little more. Because it's important in the protection zone, but also if our goal is education, we want to educate everybody in South Walton, if not everybody in Walton County. Also, for next year, can we shoot for maybe trying to get like Sowell Life to do an article about the coastal dune lakes during
We might be able to do that, yeah.
the week? I know that's a year out, but,
We'll start planning in January, so I can add those to the list,
Okay.
certainly. Okay. Any other thoughts?
We good? Okay, so we're gonna move on to the outstanding Florida waters discussion that we continued from the July meeting.
thank you, by the way.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so in your packets, I have inserted kind of like a little fact sheet that we put together years ago, because this has been a little bit of a revolving topic that's come up throughout the years, that we can go over. When I get to it.
So Lake Powell is already an outstanding Florida waterway, correct?
That is correct, and as well as any coastal dune lake that's located within a state park. So a portion of that could be, so portions of Western Lake are considered an OFW, portions, Campbell, portions of Stallworth, Morris, and I think portions of Fuller would all be considered an OFW. And then Deer is also considered an OFW. And those are like any water body that's in a state park or state area, those are automatically considered an OFW.
And also the north part of Camp Creek Lake would, goes up into Deer Lake State Park.
But it's only the portion of the lake that's in the park?
Correct. Because there's a process associated with doing it otherwise. You can't just deem it, it has to be almost a 100% acceptance of the process, of all the lake owners and stuff like that that are involved. But the ones that are in state parks, they can automatically just say, well, this is owned by the state of Florida, we want to consider it an OFW. But OFWs, it's a designation. What does it come with? It comes with some regulations. So the regulations are honestly no more, they're actually less stringent than we already have in our land development code and comprehensive plan. the biggest thing, or two big things associated with OFWs are the buffer size, which for an OFW is only 50 feet, and we already have a 100-foot requirement. And the second part is the docks. So there's an exemption in Florida statute that allows for an exemption of 1,000 square foot dock without permits. If it's over that, it does require a general permit to do that construction. For an OFW, it's reduced, the exemption size is reduced down to 500 square feet. So if it's under 500 square feet, it is still exempt, and then they can construct it. If it's over that 500 square feet, then they would have to get a permit. So those are really the regulation components of an OFW. To get there, it requires quite a few public meetings, and it also requires, I think it's 100% of the entire property owners surrounding that particular water body, which probably makes it the most complicated because of that fashion, like to get 100% of everybody signing off on saying, yes, I want this to be an OFW, because that could potentially impact anybody who already has an existing dock. It doesn't mean that that dock that's there would have to be torn down, but what if we had a catastrophic event, hurricane, whatever, and it got destroyed? They couldn't just build like Hine. They would have to go with those new regulations. So there are probably some turnoffs associated with doing that I could see people having a little bit of concern. But then the ones who really just are like, no, this is a great notoriety associated with it, then they may sign off on it. So that's kind of
So the largest coastal dune lake in the world got 100%, but we're concerned that we may not be able to get 100% on the smaller ones?
well, keep in mind that the one that is in Lake Powell was done before a lot of that development was already constructed.
I think that was somewhat recently.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
That's been many, many years.
I'll double
That's
check.
been-
That they were OFW?
Yeah,
that one?
that Lake Powell was deemed an OFW.
Yeah. It was OFW back in the 90s.
Yeah. One question I had was, you mentioned the dock size, the
Yes, ma'am.
maximum size, to have a dock without a permit. And I maybe asked this in the past, so forgive me if you've already answered my question. Are we considering the dock, the platform, and the ramp, or is the dock considered the ramp and the platform? Is everything over water the dock, or how do we define the dock?
Yeah, so there's, in the regulations for constructing dock, and I can't recite that one off the top of my head, but it's in, on, or over,
Okay,
is what the nomenclature is
Thank you.
associated with how to deal with that. Now, there's obviously some boardwalks will go up into your upland, like some people wanna build a
Sure.
boardwalk all the way up to their back porch. So then
right.
that portion of it's not considered that, but,
Thank you.
in, on, or over water
Perfect.
or wetlands. So this is, again, this is kind of a breakdown, of what this does, and it's pretty comparable to what we already have, but I do understand that notoriety associated with it. I mean, we do have several resolutions, both at the state and local level for them. But it's kind of, what's the goal at the end of the day? That we want to meet with it. If it's just a notoriety, then that's something to look into. If it's, we're trying to increase regulations, honestly, that process, we've already exceeded it with our codes and,
Well, if our goal
Regulations.
is education, then does that not help with, does the notoriety not help with allowing the public to understand it a little better, or?
I'm kind of on the fence at the end of the day, just whether or not, I think we do a great job at getting the education out there. We do have those resolutions that are already in place at both state and local levels. Having an extra notoriety might, it's whether or not, I don't know how somebody would perceive that. So I guess that's where my dilemma falls, is,
Well, to some extent, it also, you know, TDC's talking about trying to find other ways to draw people to the area for things other than the beach.
Mhm.
Outstanding Florida Waterways definitely does help with that, so. Just something to consider.
yeah. And I think we would have to do it lake by lake, process-wise at least. I don't think we can do all of them at once.
Why is that?
Because of the 100% acceptance that's gonna be required.
But public meetings wise, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do public meetings that cover all the lakes, so that we're not,
Yes, no, I don't, we would have to get with DEP, it's their process associated with it. But, it's possible that they could do lumping public meetings to cover all of them. But again, it kind of goes back to, I don't think there's gonna be a blanket OFW designation. I think it's gonna be lake by lake
okay?
at the end. I think that will be the result at the end, is how I envision it, because of just some of the steps that you have to, go through.
Because if you can't get 100%, you don't wanna have none of them get
Yeah.
approved.
Yeah.
So at least get as many approved as possible at that
Mhm.
point. I personally still think it may be worthwhile. I don't know if you're saying that that's a kind of an absurd amount of effort on your office, you know, so.
It is going to be a very lengthy process. It's not gonna be an overnight process, and it will take a lot of staff time to get there. So I'm gonna be pretty bold about that. So it won't be something we'll be able to do overnight. But we can look into it, maybe even see if somebody from DEP can come out and talk about it. Might be the next step, would be
Okay.
my recommendation.
I would love that. I think the bigger thing is like, if you're saying you don't have the staff for it, then like, what would we need to do to make sure you have the resources for that? Is that going to the county commission to ask for that, or is it, you know?
Yeah.
I don't want to put more on your plate directly, but I also think it's a worthwhile cause personally. But
Yeah.
I don't know what everybody else thinks.
I'm here to help in any way that I can, support what the board wants. I notice on page 15, it addresses, are there stricter stormwater controls for this designation? I'm very interested in that. It's, apparently it's about 15% stricter, maybe? I don't know.
So I do apologize, I did not look into that specific detail, but when I created this years ago, when it was brought up in probably 2014, 15 timeframe. And during that or post that timeframe, we've actually increased our stormwater to 110%. So,
Oh, wow.
I'll have to get with the engineers to
Perfect.
verify that information.
Oh, well, that's fantastic, and I think this is excellent, by the way. You did an excellent job.
So you think the next step is to have somebody from DEP come
Um,
talk about the process?
If it's the desire of the board to try to move forward in some direction, I think that would be the next, initial step, yes.
I think that would be, because I don't know anything about the process, so.
I I mean, I have limited knowledge, mostly from talking to Courtney at Friends of Camp Helen, but
Yeah, well, I think that would be beneficial for us if we decide to, that's where, the direction we want to go,
I mean,
so.
we gotta find out whether it's even feasible, right? So, I would love to motion that.
It does appear that the restrictions are less than what we already have in place.
Do we need a motion for that, or is that just,
I would prefer a motion.
okay, well, then we have a motion. Do I have a second? Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, great.
I'll just say,
Oh.
just, and it's not discussion, but having a designation as a OFW isn't gonna necessarily give us any better water treatment standards. But it's kinda like having scenic 30A designated as Florida Scenic Highway Corridor, Scenic Corridor, whatever. It's, you know, OFW just kinda, I guess, gives it more clout, for lack of a better word right now.
I
Prestige.
agree. That's the way I see it.
Okay, we good on that one?
Yes, sir.
Great. Building report.
Okay, in your packets, you have the building report that we normally submit to you guys. It's the last quarter, so July through present time frame. Same with code as well.
Okay, any comments on that? Okay,
Okay, then I'll go ahead and go through the updates, if that's okay. I have a few updates, and I do apologize, I did not get a more thorough update. I know the engineering is still working on, the Allen Lake project. I believe that's supposed to be starting here soon, within the next year. That's a water quality project that's been in play. TDC is still working on their Grayton Beach Community Center project. There's been some delay with that due to sea turtle nesting season. But as of Friday, that should be over, so they should be back up and running again. And then 2 updates that I did want to provide, additional updates. One, I'm gonna have to try to find the video for, if I can find it. And the other one is, I've been working with TDC and the Visitor Center, as well as the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, their park service. And during that process, what we are working on, and hopefully for a soft release or actual maybe ribbon cutting kind of release for next year's Coastal Dune Lake Week, is a trail that people can go to. What they're looking at, just let me step back 2 steps. At Camp Helen State Park, at the Visitor Center, they're wanting to do a whole Coastal Dune Lake Expo to provide a lot more information on the Coastal Dune Lakes. With that, they also want to do a trail so that people can go and visit all the Coastal Dune Lakes. So we're looking at potentially doing a raised emblem of some form that people can go and read the education signs that are out there. Go to the state parks. They can take their little passport that they have and shade that out. Once they get to a 5, 10, or 15 level view of Coastal Dune Lakes, then they can get different prizes from our visitor center. So it's kind of a cool little cooperative that we're working on, associated with some more education and outreach and getting people out to our Coastal Dune Lakes. Let's see here. The other one I wanted to bring up, if I can find it quickly. Check. Let's see here. I apologize, I didn't have this up and running. Jack over at Oyster Lake, his neighborhood has put together an advocacy group for Oyster Lake. And they have been doing cleanups on their lake as a community, which is a really neat initiative. And he sent me over this video that he had put together, which I think is a great representation of what our local communities can do. So I just wanted to play it for you all. So hit that up and see how
That's
this
Richard
goes.
Miles. He's known around here as the trash man. Out most mornings on 38 and around our neighborhood. Today we're paddling over to the west bank of Oyster Lake to pick up some trash. Arthur Jones got here ahead of us. He lives in San Diego now, but he grew up on Oyster Lake and visits a few times a year. Richard and I couldn't do this without Arthur. If we get these old boards up by Seymour Circle, Walton County will pick them up. Win-win. Because the lake's banks are littered with old hurricane debris, and you can only get to it like this when the lake drains out. We're just trying to make a dent while we can. Here's the dents. I'm Jack Turner. Richard, Arthur, and I are members of OLPS, Oyster Lake Preservation Society.
That's great.
Yeah, so they put this together, I thought it was real cute and, kind of inspiring for other communities to get out there and do as well, so, maybe in this next year, when we reach out to more of the homeowners associations during Coastal Dune Lake Week, maybe we can invite them to do similar activities.
Can we have that posted to share this week? Will he
I
let us
will,
share that?
I will ask him. He
Yeah.
did say that I could do that, so it's technically online now, but,
Yeah, can we like share it on the Facebook page or something?
yeah, let me get permission from him first, and he
Yeah.
may already have it that we can just link it to, so,
Yeah, because it's great and I
Yeah.
love that it might inspire others.
right. So that was all I have for updates.
Can you tell me again what the Allen Lake update was?
Yes,
I
ma'am,
didn't
so
get it written down.
Allen Loop,
Oh, Allen Loop, sorry.
yes, ma'am, so that is a stormwater improvement project that's been going on, it's funded through Restore, our local Restore funds. The engineering department is working on that particular project, and will be, I believe, starting soon, or right after the first of the year, was the plan.
Okay, sorry. I
No
just
problem.
didn't get it written down.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so,
Let me ask, I'm sorry. Melissa, do you know, the DOT project at Western Lake,
Mhm.
that, they just kind of started, they graded the, where the bike path was on the south side of 38?
Mhm.
Is that gonna be the new alignment for the bridge, or is that gonna be part of a bike path?
I don't know for sure, but I think it's for the Bailey Bridge
Yeah.
that they're
For the
building,
new one?
yeah.
That's, that's what it looks like. I didn't know if they're planning on doing something different with the bike path there
Yeah.
now that they were before. And I guess they're still working on the easement for with the Forest
Yeah.
Service? Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
so we're ready for our first presentation.
Mhm.
While he's getting set up, can I ask a random clarification question?
Okay.
In the coastal dune lake protection zone specifically on Lake Powell, if someone's septic, because we've talked about trying to do a
Mhm.
grant or something to get the septic tanks changed over to tap into sewer. If currently though, if someone's septic tank fails, they're required to tap into sewer, correct?
If there's sewer within a mile, that's
Okay,
what the
I
state
just wanted to
statute
make
says.
sure. I thought that was the case, I just wanted to clarify and confirm.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Second try. You got 3 minutes.
Good morning.
Just kidding.
I'm Duncan Greer, coastal and waterfront engineer for Taylor Engineering. We're the county's coastal engineering and continuing services consultant. So a lot of our work is.
Hold on just a second. If you'd turn your mic on, please. There you go.
There we go. We good?
Yep.
All right. Well, I guess for the record, Duncan Greer, coastal and waterfront engineer for Taylor Engineering, or the county's continuing services coastal engineering consultant. Primarily our work with the county is focused on the beaches over the last really 25 years or so. And so we have a long history there. Melinda asked that we give a presentation today that's kind of tied into more recent work that we've done for the county's vulnerability assessment. Melinda, we can start cycling through these slides here. Oh. Yeah, I sent you that PDF, didn't I? Not the PowerPoint. Yeah, I think that's okay. Okay, so the primary thing I want to focus on today is going to be, you know, the kind of tie-in between the current work that Taylor Engineering is doing for the county for the vulnerability assessment, and then tie that into coastal dune lakes, and so what, you know, management and resilient opportunities that we have, kind of on a smaller scale. So let's go ahead and just cycle through, Melinda. So coastal resilience, we want to, primary goals, reduce coastal flooding risk and impacts to infrastructure, adapt to changing climate conditions, and recover quickly from extreme storm events. That's the resilient part. So you guys are all very familiar with our dune lake systems. They're unique systems that have connection to the Gulf of Mexico, so we have an exchange of water, which also leaves these lakes vulnerable to coastal conditions such as elevated winds, waves, storm surge, and the associated impacts of those. And so go ahead and cycle to the next slide, Linda. So as a part of the vulnerability assessment, right, it's a state required assessment that focuses on future conditions, primarily being sea level rise. And so with the coastal dune lakes, the way that the coastal dune lakes are really affected immediately by sea level rise, or we have the increased potential for erosion, coastal erosion, due to wind and waves and water levels, which can result in shoreline loss. We have the potential for saltwater intrusion, so that the lakes become more saline as the sea level increases in elevation. And then we also have more risk of compound flooding, because as the sea level rises, so do our groundwater levels, and then you have less storage capacity for rainfall. And then extreme events, none of these are new to you all. You know, we have that erosion, flooding due to rainfall and storm surge, and then the erosion. And the unique thing about the dune lakes is they're kind of the avulsive nature of the outlet, the outfalls. So, kind of as I touched on with the increasing saline levels, you know, we have impacts to water quality. There's also, you know, other kind of resilience factors that have to do with native species, invasive and exotics, also all the incorporations of the local mitigation strategy that we're not going to go through today, and then all of the, you know, decades of Choctaw Basin Alliance initiatives for water quality. Next. So, okay, now we're going to get kind of into the more meat of this presentation. So the Walton County DA is essentially it's an assessment of water levels in flooding scenarios, in current conditions and future conditions countywide. And so the reason the county is performing that study is because for the DEP Resilient Florida program, for the county to be eligible for future funding under that program, which is it's a very well-funded program with hundreds of millions of dollars a year, then the county is required to perform that study, and then as a following step, produce an adaptation plan, which is going to provide projects in a way to implement those projects. And so the VA kind of sets the stage for vulnerability of county infrastructure, and then the ability to fund those infrastructure improvements in future years. So we're going to identify the potential flood impacts in the county and community resources, and utilize data-driven sea level rise predictions for current conditions and in the 2050 and 2080 planning horizons. So as I just mentioned, the DEP funding is a requirement. It's a requirement that we perform these. Basically, go to the next slide, Melinda. It gives us a better overview. So what Taylor Engineering has done, and in concert with the county thus far, is we have documented all of our applicable assets in the county, and then we develop a GIS database of those. We have an elevation, a kind of critical threshold elevation set for each one of those critical assets, and then we combine that with a GIS overlay of the topographic and bathymetric data in the county. Next slide. So this regionally, critical and regionally significant asset inventory is really dictated by statute language. So we have critical infrastructure, community and emergency facilities, natural, cultural, and historical resources, transportation assets, and evacuation routes. And then this regionally significant asset it includes, water resource facilities, regional medical centers, emergency, regional utilities, major transportation hubs and corridors, airports and seaports. There are some limitations to this, so we coordinated with our utility providers. There is some information that for security or public availability reasons is not actually included in this, which is, I think, an important caveat for understanding of what assets are mapped. The primary takeaway is that these assets are either county-owned or maintained predominantly. So the next step, once we have the asset inventory, is to overlay our county-wide elevations using a digital elevation model, and then we develop our water level scenarios for sea level rise, for coastal flooding, tidal flooding, coastal flooding, storm surge, all part of coastal flooding. And then also, as well, the study incorporated some results of rainfall-induced flooding. And in the chart, or plot in the center of the slide, you can see the Panama City tide gauge and how the sea level is increasing over the data set. And so we used the sea level rise predictions from Panama City as well as Pensacola to develop the sea level rise scenarios for Walton County. And so putting those together, we get these flood exposure maps, and some of those which we'll see for the coastal dune lakes specifically here in just a minute. So, as I mentioned, we have the critical elevation on community, county assets. And so when we apply these water levels over the digital elevation model, we can tell whether or not that asset is flooded and by how much. And so for different asset categories, we either have low, medium, or high risk or vulnerability associated with those assets and the flooding scenarios. So I brought with me today the maps. It's important to mention that we developed the critical asset inventory, and we had a public meeting just last week, actually, where we presented the asset inventory in the north, central, and south areas, and including focus areas. The focus areas you see in the colored hatches, polygons here on the screen, these are where critical assets are impacted kind of in a more focused area. And so part of the study zooms in further than you're seeing here to these kind of focus areas. So what we're looking at here is really just a snapshot of and I know it's hard to see at this scale, the critical assets in the south portion of the county. Okay, so like I mentioned, for this presentation, and we've made this information available to Melinda to disseminate, is that we've overlaid these flooding scenarios over a zoom scale that allows us to see them in the dune lake. So here you see the tidal current condition, and then Melinda, if you cycle through these, we might be able to tell that, okay, you see the colors darkening and increasing in size. That is moving towards, now we're going through 100-year storm surge and the current 2050 condition. This is the 100-year rainfall. and then the rainfall in 2050. So as an example, we pulled some data from Oyster Lake and Western Lake, and so you can see at this critical asset location, photoed there in the bottom left corner of the lake crossing, you can see these different kind of exposure scenarios with the flood depth plotted on the left side. So the graph on the top left is the coastal flooding scenario, and then on the bottom is the rainfall scenario. Next slide. So you can kind of see in these this is just a snapshot example, but it's showing that there is increased exposure and increased risk at these asset locations as time progresses. And so just to kind of wrap this all together, you know, the county, obviously, and you as the advisory board have been involved in, you know, regional and community size projects. One that I think is worth mentioning is the Hurricane and Storm Damage Reduction Project, which you see the kind of maps there in the bottom right. The watershed plan, obviously, big deal for water quality and water quality improvement. Next slide. I think it's kind of key to focus here too, and I know that all of you are very well familiar with the Coastal Dune Lake Protection Zone, but that with the increased risk and vulnerability, the Coastal Dune Lake Protection Zone and the policies surrounding the dune lakes really become, you know, increasingly important, especially as we have sea levels rise, and potential for erosion, that we're not building within those areas and don't have infrastructure that can be impacted in the future. And so having these offsets, these policy protections, helps us to be able to mitigate, you know, future risk to infrastructure or private homes, what have you. The county's obviously progressing comprehensive plan. The policy, you know, sides from as many angles as they can. Next slide. So opportunities to increase resilience. It's hard to focus in, you know, with the protections that are already in place. When we focus into like a very small scale on the lakes, it's kind of a daunting situation where you say, okay, well, what can we do? And, you know, with the protection zone requirements, really even the implementation of things like living shorelines are complicated in that, you know, we can't have riprap, we can't have hard stabilizations within the lakes, obviously for good reason. And so on a smaller scale, living shorelines can be accomplished through vegetation enhancement. Same with dune enhancements that are, you know, surrounding the dune lake outfalls. And so that vegetation, I know you all are aware, really mitigates risk of erosion because you're stabilizing the shorelines. And so I know the county has guidance in place for these native vegetation enhancements. There's also, you know, some good IFAS information out there about what can and cannot be done from a DEP and Army Corps of Engineers permitting side. Again, these are small scale kind of improvements that homeowners could make. Next slide. So we talked a little bit about it's important to talk a little bit about management tools. Obviously, you know, monitoring the lakes, continued monitoring, establishing the trigger permits for lakes so that there is an opportunity to outfall the lake if we have a situation, or any of the lakes really, when they have a situation where you have flooding due to rainfall primarily, or the outfall is closed in due to avulsion of the inlet. Just kind of pointing out the importance of those environmental policies like fertilizer use, clearing, providing proper public infrastructure like sewer collection, and the potential for larger scale restorations led by the county. And as I mentioned earlier, as a part of the vulnerability assessment, next steps will be adding the adaptation plan, and then identifying projects, and then seeking funding from the state to incorporate resilience into county infrastructure. Any questions?
Any questions?
What area is your group responsible for? Is it,
So Taylor Engineering is the county's coastal engineering consultant. And so we, like, my office is located in Destin. I live south end of the county, here in Walton County. So really, our direct involvement, what we're contracted to do, is work that the county has identified regarding the beaches, or in this scenario, really, we're providing a connectivity to the work that we're performing for the countywide vulnerability assessment.
okay.
And so just to kind of connect the two, we developed the more zoomed in maps for you all to be able to see how that, better visualize how that vulnerability assessment that we've performed really applies to the Dune Lakes.
On that one slide, you showed 2050 and 2080. I couldn't tell, but what's the footage, basically, the rise that y'all are predicting?
Oh, Melinda, we could
I
flip
couldn't
back
see,
to that.
just, is it a foot in 2050, or is it 2 feet, 2080?
It's pages 45 and 46.
Yeah, it's, at this
Hard to
zooms,
read.
it's in the legend there.
It was on that, they had three lines showing the,
Oh, you're talking about the graphs, or the plots, yeah.
Yeah, it's page 45 and 46.
So there you're looking at inundation, you're looking at flood levels. And so in these two scenarios, really, we're only, Melinda, there, if you keep cycling through there at the end of these maps. We're seeing a relatively small change,
that's what,
relatively small change within the Dune Lakes themselves.
that one right there, or one of these in here.
Yep, so on the coastal flooding side, you're really just seeing that projection of sea level rise. So you can tell, like, in 2080, we're seeing, you know, close to 2 feet of storm surge increase due to, so you could kind of envision that as, you know, the base flood elevation now being 2 feet higher.
Okay,
Does that answer the question?
yes.
Okay, good. You see smaller changes with rainfall because the future rainfall scenarios have kind of multiplication factors embedded in them that don't increase it really dramatically, like we see with the sea level rise.
So, just Melinda, it sounds like there may be some potential for an initiative for either, like, maybe a grant for doing native vegetation enhancements within the coastal Dune Lake Preservation Zone? Is that what I'm hearing? Does that sound in?
I think eventually, so the next step is going to be adaptation plan, so I put in a grant for doing an adaptation plan for the county, as well as through the FOA program I did do one for multiple counties through the watershed. Through that process, I think projects like that can be identified, and would be identified, especially like really shoreline type projects that all the erosion and
Yeah.
treatment and all that.
Yeah, this is going to be very helpful. I've been trying to get resilience funding for 3 years for wetlands restoration projects, and so now having some hard data and beautiful maps, that'll help.
It does set the stage for funding opportunities. for
Yeah,
sure.
we knew it was going to be a deficiency when we were trying to get the money because, we knew we were on the very early ends of this, so, but hopefully it'll help in the future so we can so I continue to have a job.
Well, and we're,
That's always good, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
We wanna
it's
keep
personal
Jeff
in nature.
We want to keep Jeff employed.
and our scope is not just limited to, you know, the beaches. You know, we are available to the county, you know, to plan, you know, try to put more time, effort, and energy into more regional scale projects if that's, you know, the direction and desire of the board. Thank you all.
We do have a question.
I was curious if there was any update or just information shared on beach nourishment across the county at all? Cause I live in Walton County, but I work.
You got, come to the microphone, please.
Sure.
Well, I don't know what you take, well.
Or if your work, I was curious if your work.
I know, I was curious about it too, but I was like,
Yeah,
State your question again, I'm sorry.
My name is Nina, and I was curious if there was an update or just a general conversation on beach renourishment across the county. It's like I live in Walton County, but I work in Bay County, and so when I'm on the beaches in Walton County, I feel like we have no dry sand left. So I was just curious if there's any thoughts or really any concern.
Yeah, so there has been initiatives for beach renourishment for quite some time. We started it many, many years ago. There was a little stagnant period of time that I'm gonna call customary use. And so that's, that put a hold on some of the efforts. At this time, we do have, local contributing agreements with the Army Corps of Engineers. They are working towards, updating their design that they had done for us many years ago. I think 14 was probably the last update, that I recall specifically. So they need to get the survey data to make sure where are we at with this, and then they can update their design plans associated with it. So it's ongoing, it's slow, but it is ongoing to kind of see where we can go
Are
with
those
it.
projects, or are those, is that work like project specific, or is it across all the county beaches?
The beach renourishment project is across the whole 26 miles. Now, there are segments of that that are not included because of state parks or adjacent to these coastal dune lakes. There's buffers around them because we don't want to fill in the outfalls to the point that they don't open naturally anymore. So there are I say loosely 26 miles because that's what the width of our county is, but there are segments that are not included.
There's cutouts. Cool, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, next up.
Great. Good morning, everyone. My name's Kayla Wingard. I'm the Monitoring Program Manager for the Choctawhatchee Basin Alliance, and I am here to present this year's update on our water quality monitoring program. So to start off with, I'll kind of do an overview, just a reminder who CBA is, what we do, what our monitoring program consists of, and then we'll get into the results with this newest year of data. Okay, so to start with, CBA Choctawhatchee Basin Alliance, we're a nonprofit, and we work towards protecting and sustaining our waterways throughout 4 main program areas. These are monitoring, education, restoration, and research. We're a nonprofit housed through the Northwest Florida State College and have about 10 paid staff members, but thousands of volunteers who help us get our work done. So yeah, our 4 main program areas, the results that I'm showing today are just part of one program within our monitoring area. We also do related coastal dune lake work throughout our education, restoration, and research assistance as well, but we will be focusing just on water quality monitoring results today. We can kind of zoom through this because I think we're all familiar with our dune lakes around here, but these are the 15 named lakes that our results are going to be for. A couple of the larger ones are divided into sections or lobes, so the results will be presented that way. And again, I'll just kind of run through this. Coastal dune lakes, what makes them special, these are not just any, Florida lake. I think we all understand that they are rare. They're really unique. They're shallow, irregularly shaped, and continually changing. The inputs vary from one lake to another, so even within coastal dune lakes, every single lake is unique. The water level and salinity, we have a huge gradient that our lakes fall within. In general, they are have higher color values because of their tea stain, tannic acid. They're slightly acidic, and compared to other Florida lakes, we see low to medium nutrient levels. All right, so for our monitoring program, who's conducting the sampling? Well, this is CBA staff, but also a lot of CBA-trained citizen scientists. So these are community members that either live on the lake or near the lake, and visit their lakes monthly. They are all trained by CBA staff to ensure that they're following the same procedures and our data is accurate and reliable. We work with University of Florida's Lake Watch program. So their laboratory analyzes our samples for nutrients. We also use their procedures to measure water clarity. And then additionally, CBA, we take water quality parameters out in the field with a YSI Pro DSS multi-probe meter. These monthly values have been taken at some lakes for over 20 years, and that's okay, I'll just hurry up a little bit. No, you're good, you're totally good. So at some lakes we have over 20 years of data, so we've got a long baseline for quite a few of these water bodies. Like I mentioned before, some of the lakes are broken into section. We have 18 water bodies we'll be looking at in total, and the results are based on, in most cases, 3 to 4 stations per water body, so these exact same GPS stations are revisited every single month. All right. This is just a deeper dive into what we're looking at in the field. So in the field, each month we are getting measures for temperature, dissolved oxygen. We do both milligram per liter and percent saturation. Specific conductivity, salinity, pH, and turbidity are all taken in the field. Through Lake Watch, we get results from our water samples for nutrients, total phosphorus, total nitrogen, chlorophyll A, and they also analyze our Secchi disc vanishing point data. So just 2 more slides before we get into the results here. When I'm talking about the nutrient sampling that we're doing, when we are measuring phosphorus, we are measuring total phosphorus. So phosphorus is, you know, a natural nutrient that's needed for life, for plants, animals, algae, bacteria. And when we take a look at the concentration in the water at a given period of time, we are looking at total phosphorus. So there are several different types of compounds, and our results are for all of those compounds present in the water at that time. And same thing for nitrogen, essential nutrient in excess levels can lead to excess algae growth. That is why we have arrows pointing to that chlorophyll bubble there, and our total nitrogen values are for every different type of nitrogen compound that is in the water at a given time. And chlorophyll we use as an indicator of algal biomass. So those results are related to each other, our nutrients and our chlorophyll. So that's why we are measuring those. There are other micronutrients that can lead to algae production too, but we focus on those main ones there. And then we will also be looking at dissolved oxygen today. Dissolved oxygen is an important measure for aquatic life to survive. Fish, invertebrates, plants, they all need oxygen, and they can't pull that oxygen off of the O in H2O. So we need dissolved gas oxygen in the water column, and this happens through photosynthesis by plants, by algae, as well as diffusion through the air that can be increased by wave action, wind, aeration, and things that decrease dissolved oxygen is respiration by organisms in the water. Higher temperatures will lead to less ability for the water to be holding that gaseous oxygen, as well as higher salinity too. So those are some factors that can influence our dissolved oxygen values. Okay, so now we're getting to see how our coastal dune lakes ranked with our most recent year of data. So when this says 2024, it's not that I forgot to update the slide. 2024 is our last entire year chunk of data that we have to add to our baseline. So with our 2024 data, these rankings here are based on that year's mean values. So all of our dune lakes are very, very different. We have in the lakes that have the lowest salinity, we have Allen Lake, and these are ranked in order. So Allen Lake is almost entirely a freshwater lake. On the other side, you see Grayton at the highest salinity, which at certain points in time will reflect, you know, a very similar salinity to what you see out in the Gulf. And all of the lakes, you know, range in between there. And then in terms of nutrients, Eastern Lake, Campbell, Camp Creek, those for 2024 returned the means for the lowest amounts of nutrients. So that's our phosphorus, nitrogen, and chlorophyll. And then on the higher end, we're seeing oyster and Allen Lake have the highest nutrients for 2024. In terms of dissolved oxygen, Alligator and Powell were lowest DO, and then highest DO was Campbell and Morris. So those are all kind of relative to each other, but what are some actual quantifiable values we can put to that? You know, what does that mean? On our next slide, we've got a couple values to kind of help make sense of this. So that range of data that our dune lakes are falling within, lowest salinity, 0.04. That is fresh water at Allen Lake. You know, it doesn't have a functioning open outfall like Grayton does, where there's more frequent, longer connections to the Gulf. And we have a mean of 22 parts per thousand of salinity. So that's the range of salinity values that we're seeing in the dune lakes. For nutrients, we've got on the lower end, this is just an example, this is just total nitrogen. We had 208 micrograms per liter at Eastern Lake. And then on the higher end, so that range of our average nitrogen went to 544 micrograms per liter at Oyster Lake. So, you know, 544 is more than double the 2008, and 500, you know, might sound like a large number. Another way to kind of put this in context is the FDEP's numeric nutrient criteria for these types of lakes. The criteria that you don't want to surpass annually for a mean more than once in a 3-year period is 2,230. So 544 is still well below that criteria. However, that criteria is developed for Florida lakes in general, and we know that our coastal dune lakes are very unique in themselves. So looking at, you know, how these values compare over our long-term data, over our historical data is important context to have. And kind of same thing for DO. In terms of lowest DO, this is just milligram per liter. We also have our percent saturation. On the lower end is Alligator and Powell Lake. And then on our higher end are Campbell and Morris, you know, in our Topsail Hill State Preserve, they had the highest DO.
Are those going,
Mhm.
sorry, the arrows going left to right, are those progressively the highest levels or lowest levels? So like Drake, the lowest DO?
I can see how that would be confusing. Okay, so lowest,
Roughly the same, or are they decreasing?
yeah, so it is in order of, so for example, for lowest DO, Alligator had absolute lowest, Powell had a little bit more than Grayton, and then opposite for highest DO, Campbell had absolute highest, then Morris.
Okay, thanks.
I might change that formatting for next year. All right, another way to categorize our lakes, and I'm just going to go through this quickly, is by assigning trophic state values. So trophic state refers to the amount of biological productivity at a lake at a given time. So we assign, you know, these different trophic states. There's 4 different states. You can be oligotrophic, mesotrophic, eutrophic, or hypereutrophic, and that gradient ranges from, you know, very clear, low productivity, very likely very, very low algae, to super murky, high phytoplankton content. You might have dense mats of algae. It could be impaired. That's a super huge simplification of this, but those are what those 4 categories fall within, and we assign lakes to a trophic state based on chlorophyll A levels. If you look at Florida lakes in total, you have them spanning, you know, all 4 of those categories. The majority are probably a mesotrophic or eutrophic. Coastal dune lakes are a little bit different. So on this next slide, we'll see how they fall. All of our dune lakes are either in, currently, based on 2024 data, are in oligotrophic or mesotrophic. So they are in that clearer water. Yes?
Sorry, this is probably a really stupid question. Is the trophic state essentially like how healthy the lake is as a whole? No.
No,
Okay.
not necessarily. It's just another way to describe, you know, some lakes are naturally oligotrophic, and some lakes naturally have tons and tons of, you know, life and fish and, you know, have much more algae content naturally. So it's just a way to kind of characterize it, but it's not a health, indicator, If you were to see, you know, a lake jump from oligotrophic to eutrophic or mesotrophic to eutrophic and hyper-eutrophic within the span of, a couple years, that would likely indicate we've got some human interference, maybe, high inputs of nutrients that are causing that shift to happen rapidly. So that's when a trophic state could be used as an indicator that something's going on and it could be impaired. Okay. So speaking of how the water body characteristics are changing over time, the next slide presents some trends. So for our nutrients, for salinity DO, are our levels increasing, decreasing, stable? So these are statistical trends based on 10 years of data. We've added the 2024 year of data. And to focus on some, trends that could, raise a flag would be increasing nutrients, increasing chlorophyll, decreasing oxygen, especially if you have multiples of those happening at the same time. So these are our trends for 2015 to 2024. There's a lot to unpack here. That leftmost column are the water bodies, and then each column to the right is a different parameter. So TP, that's our phosphorus, TN, nitrogen, CHL, chlorophyll, DO, pH, and salinity are presented here. Out of those, focal trends that, we might, you would want to investigate further, we only see increasing total phosphorus. We don't see increasing total nitrogen. In fact, it's decreasing, based on these statistical trends, and chlorophyll is either stable or decreasing. So out of those focal trends, we do see increasing phosphorus at Allen, Powell, Stallworth, and Western. So understanding, what's going on in each of these lakes, they need to be looked at a lake level. For example, Western Lake, we see increasing phosphorus, decreasing nitrogen, and increasing salinity. A Mattie Kelly Environmental Institute study on the effects of saltwater exchange with dune lakes showed that there is a positive relationship between phosphorus and salinity, and the opposite is true with nitrogen. So with increasing salinity, it is often associated with more phosphorus and less nitrogen. So that could be what's going on there. In the case of Allen Lake, where we don't have an open outfall, that's not what's going on in that location. But this is just a high-level overview. So for these lakes, I would dive in deeper to the reports that we have, as well as our interactive dashboard to investigate what's going on at each of them. And that will be on our next slide, or after one more. Okay, so one more, and then we'll get to how to access the rest of the data and do a deeper dive. In addition to all of these quantifiable parameters, we also get observations and comments from our citizen scientists and our staff out in the field. Some of these, let us know what the condition of the lake is looking like. There are eyes and our ears, but they also help us interpret the data. So example, on Alligator Lake, our volunteers helping us keep track of, the construction that's happening around the lake. Or on Grayton Lake, our volunteers helping us interpret the data because he observed some high turbidity values just as a boat was passing by, so that helps us know what to do with that data value when we get it before, during the process of analysis. Okay, so we have our 2024 Coastal Dune Lake report is available on our website. This report, there's a PDF version, there's also a more interactive page, and this is where you can find a breakdown for each individual lake. There's more ways to visualize the data on here. There's time series, there's more statistics available, so that's where you can dive further. On the next slide, we have just more examples of what you can find in that annual report for each lake. And then we also just updated our water quality dashboard. We had a water quality dashboard for the last few years, but it was kind of limited in the amount of investigations that, ways you could explore our data. So we have this new version that we have a lot more features. if you go to the next slide, and if you take a look at that top bar, where there's different tabs that you can do. So the last page was the overview. This page is our parameter comparison. So what got us to this display is selecting, a region on one map, selecting another region or the same region on the second map, and then you can select what parameter you want to see. So it doesn't have to be the same here. We selected Camp Creek for both of them, and the top parameter is surface salinity, the bottom is surface pH. We can summarize this data, by every time point, by year, by season, and you can also show trends and turn those on and off. All right, so that is all I had prepared for today, and that's my contact information, and I'm happy to field any other questions and try to answer them.
Who's got some cues? I have one.
Okay.
The data for the lakes, it is for the lakes the parameters are for the lakes all around Florida. But are the parameters that the data you guys are collecting, is it going to be used to set standards for these lakes?
Standards are, so for FDEP.
Sure.
So FDEP, comes out with those standards like the numeric nutrient criteria. We submit our data, to Walton County. We make it available to the public. We also submit it to the Watershed Information Network run by DEP, and they do use our data in their assessments or as they are revising criteria. So I don't know if, there are any ongoing standard revising efforts at the moment or not, but they do use our data.
But basically, what you're saying is the data is basically being used in comparison to other lakes throughout Florida, but one of your first statements was the coastal dune lakes are a very unique place.
Mm-hmm.
So how are the expectations different for our lakes? How do we use this data to see, are our coastal dune lake protection zone restrictions working, or do we need to enhance them, or?
Right. Yeah, because there hasn't, and maybe that was what your question was, if there was going to be like coastal dune lake specific criteria or something. So I think that comparing it to the standards that exist for, Florida lakes is helpful to set a reference, but because they are so different, I think that's where looking at the long-term trends and the baseline data that we do have and seeing how, the recent years of data are changing from that baseline, it's just contextual and takes, input and knowledge from people who are more familiar with this lake than at a state level. So, that's where this advisory board comes in and, prioritizing different restoration projects based on, the known, history and baseline of data that we do have. And keeping our eyes on those trends.
So based on all of your research and data, do we have essentially a health of each lake ranking, explanation to the health of each lake, as opposed to the specific salinity, this is up, this is down? Is there an explanation of how healthy is each lake based on those things that is explainable to the public? Since our job is education.
Yeah, so CBA hasn't, created a report card type thing for each lake. That would be a great thing we would love to do, with the resources. We're trying to do something similar for Bay and River, and then, hopefully get to a coastal dune lake point as well. Because I know the report is a little daunting for a regular member of the public. Hopefully the interactive dashboard, makes it a little bit easier to investigate, nutrient. For example, like the salinity. Okay, salinity is changing a lot. It's a coastal dune lake. It's a,
Yeah.
it's going to change. But that's why, yeah, looking at the nutrients, the chlorophyll, the dissolved oxygen, and how those are changing over time is important. I don't have a report card,
Yeah.
for the general public.
To be able to create some sort of a report card where we can then go in and say, hey, we really need to do an initiative around Oyster Lake on this, and let's get community buy-in based on y'all's research.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we would definitely want to be a part of that effort, but,
Please do.
Barbara Morano, thank you. I'm going to be back on comments, but Julia, you hit the nail on the head. We need to know more about each individual lake. That's a priority. I mean, we're sitting here looking at all this. It's a blog. I mean, it's just a blur. You really, please, this should be a priority for CBA. So I'm asking you, Julia's asking you, we need more understanding of the individual lakes, and then we can move in another direction for that. So thank you.
Yeah, so that we can help you and get public buy-in to help protect the lakes. That's the whole idea of all of this.
perhaps I didn't do a good job presenting the results. I think those focal trends is kind of, what you're kind of getting towards. What are the trends that we're seeing that could be indicative of a future problem? And so that total phosphorus, that was the one trend that we were seeing in 4 different lakes.
And so, okay, so that's what you're trying to tell us with the arrows on those pages, wherever.
Yeah, that one page.
On page 67?
That one page kind of sums it up, and the trends, and that would be.
Yeah, the
that'd
ups
be-
and down
that'd
trends,
kinda
but
be-
unless we understand, and unless the general public understands what each of those trends means in comparison to each other, then there's
Yeah.
no, like, that, it's very, very technical.
Yes, and so for each of those lakes, that's going to require a deeper dive. And this presentation is just meant to be, a quick higher level overview of what's going on in general. I would be more than happy, to investigate, these individual lakes further. Our data is all already publicly available, and our reports have been submitted to the county. But definitely going into that data, and I'm happy to.
Yeah, I think, so you're saying total phosphorus is up on Allen, Powell, Stallworth, and Western, and that is a concern.
It could be. So there are some relationships between increasing salinity and increasing phosphorus, like in the case of Western, that might be what's going on. So in that case, I'm not sure, this is something that's alarming, but in Allen Lake, where there's not an open outfall, having that on the ground, knowledge of what are the land uses, what are the land, practices on the properties surrounding the lake might give some insight into where that could be coming from.
Okay, so you're saying that it's not necessarily concerning, but it could be. And then, how do we take that data and find out what we as a community need to do to protect those 4 lakes that are potentially a concern? You know what I mean? Like how you guys are collecting a lot of data, right? How do we turn it into something actionable to protect the lakes? Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. So, right, a lot of effort goes into collecting this data, presenting this data. We are providing it. We, partner with Walton County on a lot of projects, and, would like to use this data to help prioritize projects and inform, new locations for, project restoration. But for, all of those lakes where I pointed them out right now, just based on those trends, it requires a deeper dive into understanding what those causes would be and what type of restoration project might address that.
Well, not even just restoration project, but community education on whatever potentially might be causing that, to get community buy-in for protection?
Yeah, so we have worked on community literature for coastal dune lake owners, like planning, negative vegetation guides, other, types of information materials for homeowners around the coastal dune lakes. We have probably 3 different types of education materials for best practices, yeah.
Right, those are just general best practices though. I'm talking about like, if we're seeing specific issues at specific lakes, then there may be a community initiative that we want to help. If Melinda's working on a project to try and protect a specific lake, that we, as a board that does education, can try and get the community buy-in, get the word out, and really work with neighbors that are impacting that lake, or in the case of Western Lake, since there's more tourism, or Eastern Lake, or Lake Powell where there's boats, that great to collect a lot of data, but if we don't know how to use the data to educate, then we don't know what to do with it, if that makes any sense.
It does, and I think that's the next step is, seeing these increasing trends is seeing, you're talking about when we have a specific issue. I don't have a specific cause identified, for those increasing trends yet to target a project.
Okay, but I think last year there were some similar trends, and so at what point do you guys or someone else start doing a deeper dive to determine, okay, these 4 lakes and the increased phosphorus are concerning, what triggers additional deep dive into figuring out what's causing that and if it's truly an issue or not?
I think what this is also not showing is the strength of those trends, or if it could just be, natural variation too. So that's not represented on here. I haven't seen a total phosphorus trend that is a dramatic, jump. Okay. So, the severity of those trends or the strength of them, whether, I think the grade of those trends would play, not just if there's an increase or not, but what is the strength of that trend. And we haven't seen a super, a large slope for an increasing trend.
Is it possible for CBA or I'm not sure who, to give the community a health status of each lake? Is that something that's easy, possible? You know what I mean?
Let me talk about that a little bit.
Thanks.
In 2018, we did an environmental, I'm gonna call it an assessment indirectly. It was actually a study on all of the coastal dune lakes. We hired a consulting firm. It was Jones Edmonds. They contracted through Janicki as a sub to look at all the data that was presented up to that point. So they looked at the trends. Then they also did a vegetation analysis. And that's a process that can be done every so many years. We're actually almost up to that 10-year mark, being almost the 26. So we're at 8 years next year of starting that particular project. So it's something that we could look into and maybe have another evaluation to gauge where we're at this point. We have that baseline from 18. Have we seen any increases, decreases, whatever? The one thing I do want you to consider though, so we've talked about standards for coastal dune lakes. And this came out in that particular report, is that each of the coastal dune lakes are isolated individual lakes. There are some that are way more fresher and some that are way more saline. So when you're dealing with the state leveled standards that come out there, they have one for freshwater and they have one for estuarine. And estuarines, it's like they just look at different things, but since ours are kind of all over the place, we can't have one just for the coastal dune lakes. It would have to be lake specific scenarios. They have looked at the data, they have kind of gauged what these trends are looking like, but to my knowledge, they haven't deemed any TMDLs or total maximum daily loads for any of these lakes.
Any
because
what? I'm sorry.
they're called total maximum daily loads. So what you're looking at is those nitrogen and the phosphorus levels. And it's basically saying this lake can only handle this much. If we add extra to it, we might see adverse reactions, right? So that hasn't really been established to the point that they felt like it's been necessary so far. I mean, we can gauge them again and kind of see, hey, what are you guys thinking about this? But honestly, I mean, maybe looking into getting another environmental assessment done similar to what we had in 18 is not a bad idea, because that can provide us some evidence of where we come in 8 years. We've had major regulation changes in those 8 years that are in place, right? Because actually what triggered that initial environmental assessment were the regulation changes. So we went from a 25% up to a 40% of what needed to be preserved on the properties. So if that's something that the board wants me to try to engage the Board of County Commissioners on and look at using some of the coastal dune lake funds to pursue, I can look into that.
It just seems
So-
like it would be beneficial on a couple of levels. One, is our protection zone adequately, truly protecting the lakes? Or are they getting better? Are they staying the same? Are they getting worse? If
Yeah.
they're getting worse, then our protections need to be increased, right? And so without that data, I don't know how we could know that, but also,
Well, I can talk to that real quick.
Okay.
So that assessment that was completed in 18 actually did indicate that they felt like the 100-foot buffer was way better than any other opportunity that you could have for protecting the lakes. So when you can preserve that, that's gonna help with that water quality treatment. So that's what the trend that they were seeing.
okay.
And was identified during that process. So I think that that is a good thing. Now, do we have 100 feet on every single lake on every single lot? Absolutely not.
Right.
Because we have lots of records. So maybe figuring out how the regulations have, if they have
Yeah.
improved the situation or
I mean, you would think they
Cause-
would have improved it, but
Yes,
wouldn't it be
in
nice to
theory.
be able to tell the public, yeah, they truly have worked?
yeah.
And/or, hey, we're seeing a trend on these lakes, we need to really get the word out to the public to do better about protecting them, and maybe, I don't know exactly, but, information is gonna be key to that. I would love to see that updated information so that we can assess that.
Yeah, it was a pretty hefty price tag associated with
Of
it.
course it
But
was.
at the end of the day, we do have funds in our coastal dune lake account. We can look at opportunities like that to potentially pursue. It just has to go through proper procurement and all the things. So, it's something that we can.
Do you feel like that's a good use of the funds?
Honestly, I think it's not a bad idea. I was kind of looking more at that 10-year mark.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that we can't start looking at it now.
Anybody else have thoughts on that?
Not at this time.
Okay.
I think that, kind of bottom line with me, if there were alarms triggered, we would know. I mean, we would hear something, we would know something. As far as making those measures standards, and if they're being exceeded or to the public, that it would come out. Maybe what you're thinking and talking about is more systematic and available way to do that. Just on a day-to-day
Just a little more public-friendly information, like the specifics of this lake is up in salinity, this lake's down in pH, doesn't mean much to the general public.
Right.
So,
Yeah, so just make the
But what is-
information a
what
little
is-
more accessible.
What does it mean to a scientist?
Yeah, I
It
don't
doesn't mean,
know.
it means the same thing. It's not gonna, the general public's not gonna gain or lose any more information based on the parameters. Like, there's no way to take these lakes and grade them against each other because they're all very different.
No, I'm not saying grade them against each other. I'm more saying grade them against historically, are they getting better? Are they getting worse? Are they staying the same? Just
Well, I think that's called trends, right? So,
Sure.
if you look at the graph that's up on your screen right now, you have peaks, but then they come back down. You're not seeing a constant incline throughout multiple years. Typically, if we go back and look at this, we might find that 18 might have been a really wet year.
Mm-hmm.
So that could have been a potential variable that could have impacted what happened that year. But the next year it came down. So it could have been a dry year. You know, there's different variables that affect things. It doesn't mean that we have, and there's a difference between a point source discharge and
Sure.
a non-point source discharge, right? So sometimes it can just be influential by environmental factors, not that somebody's out over fertilizing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just,
Yeah, and I think that's where, and correct me if I'm wrong, but does that, the dotted line, is that, what does the dotted line represent?
The dotted line is a trend line.
Yeah, so what you're seeing there, that kind of actually gives that visualization of what's going on.
And there is rainfall as a parameter on our dashboard too. If you want to look at that as against one of the parameters that you're comparing. And then in this presentation on that grid with all of the trends, one of the reasons that, we're not like, ringing an alarm for Allen in the case where that, increasing salinity might not be, what's correlating with that increasing phosphorus is because that increasing phosphorus doesn't appear to be increasing chlorophyll. Chlorophyll, isn't changing. DO is not decreasing. So once, that sequence begins, that, is when action needs to be taken. And preferably action is taken, beforehand so it doesn't get to that point.
yeah, and I guess that's my whole point is just making it easier for the public to understand whether the lakes are healthy or not. And if we're doing well, then great, we get to say, hey, look at all these things, they've been super effective,
Okay.
or,
Can I turn this around on you a little bit?
sure.
Okay. So, Madam Public, when you look at that, how would you better understand what that graph looks like?
That's what I'm saying, I
Okay.
don't know, because I don't know,
Okay,
And
and that's okay. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. Obviously, there's gonna be some people that know how to read a graph. There's some people that aren't. That's kind of where it's at.
Well,
The
I
previous
understand
dashboard-
everything's gonna go up and down,
Right.
and I think that's what I'm saying, is the scientists who fully understand all of this
Well, I think that's also why there's the trend lines.
are the ones who can say, hey, the lakes are pretty healthy, And, of our 15 lakes, these are super healthy, these could do a little better, and I guess that's what I'm suggesting, to be able to say to the public, instead of giving them all of these super detailed things that, I don't know what that means, I don't know, is that good, is that bad,
So in the previous dashboard, there was like a meter. It kind of had a low, medium, high scenario, kind of like you're driving your car.
There is a gauge on a different tab on this one as well.
Do you want me to pull that up? Maybe, I don't know if that would help.
If it's not important, then great. I'm just saying, like, I would love to know, hey, of the 15 lakes, 12 of them are in really healthy shape, and 3 of them need a little extra love. That's what I'm
Who is
saying.
going to be the arbiter of the health of a lake? Because it's not CBA. They're not going to say that this lake is healthy versus not healthy. DEP is for sure not going to do it. In the county, I don't think they have any desire to say that to say that something is healthy or not. So I don't know who would make that designation, because that's outside of the realm of what you do.
Right, it's complex to do, and like we talked about, we can look at those and then see the standards as a reference, and we're way, way, way below them. Does that mean everything's great and everything's okay. That's why looking at, that baseline of data is really important. So that determining what is healthy for each of these lakes would be, I'm not sure exactly how to go about it. It's complex.
Okay, then that's the answer, is like, there's no way to say that the lakes are healthy or not healthy.
I'm not saying there's no way to say, I'm just saying looking at those focal trends of what could be alarming over our long-term data is what we've been focusing on.
We could be in a 30-year period of just bad water quality, and the trend's gonna show, for us, it's gonna look normal, but over the longer term, it's gonna look like, like all of a sudden it just dropped off when the humans came into play.
Well, if
So
it's not a good idea, then
but
that's okay, just
I
asking.
I just don't see how, I don't see how nobody's gonna go out there and say, hey, that's healthy, that's not. There's-
So
they're
when
not
she
gonna- they're not gonna do that.
presented the confusing arrows, but with the levels, and we were talking about, she talked about the total nitrogen, and she told you within this range, it doesn't even meet the max, right? You said the total nitrogen is way higher. Yeah, so does that, if that's more clarifying for you, to know what range our lakes are within and know what the normal range should be, right? Or the max of what it should be. If that's a better way to present it, then that's another way that can be presented.
That probably would make a little more sense.
Yeah, she can present ranges for sure, and then tell you where we are. She's telling you exactly where we are here. We just don't have every range. Do you know them by any chance?
Yeah, so
Well, I mean, I'm not asking for all the details. I'm just trying to figure out, how can we present it to the public in a way that they're gonna understand a little